Raider Nation, what's going on? We got some breaking news. It's Mitchell Renz from Chat Sports, and coming up here on today's show, we're going to talk about the breaking news around the Las Vegas Raiders trading defensive tackle Neil Farrell Jr. to the Kansas City Chiefs. We're going to tell you why the deal ultimately ended up going down. I'm going to tell you who won the trade and then who benefits from it, because today, Josh McDaniels, Dave Ziegler, they got to get this roster down to 53 players by 4 p.m. Eastern time. And literally as those words came out of my mouth, I mean, you got about 2 hours left to go. So what I want to know right now from the nation, the best fans in all of the NFL, what is your one-word reaction to the Neil Farrell Jr. trade? I want to know down in the comments, because to me, my one-word reaction is lazy. And it's not that it's a lazy trade by the Raiders, but one word that a Raiders captain told me back in April before the NFL draft to describe Neil Farrell Jr., it was lazy. Then it sounded like maybe he was getting the wheels turning in the right direction. In May, June, there were some new reports that came out that said, hey, he might be finally turning that light bulb on. But you know what? I didn't really see much in the preseason to make me all too excited. I didn't get a lot from joint practices that made me all too excited. The bottom line, the reason why Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler decided to trade Neil Farrell Jr. to a division rival, not to any division rival, right? Like, if it's a trade to the Broncos, something. If it's a trade to the Chargers, okay. If it's a trade to the Kansas City Chiefs, the defending Super Bowl champions, the reason is because this organization, the Silver and Black, have absolutely positively no confidence in Neil Farrell Jr. to ever be anything. That's a bold fact. Like, you don't trade to Kansas City unless you truly believe that that guy had a 0% chance to make your roster and that you knew deep down he's never going to make it in the NFL. Does Neil Farrell Jr. have talent? Yes, he does. But this also tells me that Kansas City's panicking a little bit and that they might not have Chris Jones, who's holding out right now. So here's the trade that ended up going down. The Raiders, they receive a 6th-round pick in 2024. Get those FKCs going. Kansas City gets Neil Farrell Jr., the defensive tackle out of LSU last season. He did not get too much playing opportunity. He was drafted in the 4th round. I want to say 126 overall by McDaniels and Ziegler in their very, very first draft. This upcoming preseason, he had 5 total tackles. He's a big guy up the middle. But I hear this type of stuff, and I'm like, all right, that means Adam Butler's got a better shot to make this roster. It means a guy like John Jenkins, the veteran at 34, has a better chance to make this roster. I also now am screaming from the top of my lungs, it is Nesta Jade Silvera season. Because let's be real, Nesta Jade Silvera has outplayed Neil Farrell Jr. the entire year. And that's just a cold, hard fact. And the comparison that I'm about to throw out, and the screen picture that you see right now, is the Raiders' current defensive tackle depth chart. They got Jerry Tillery, John Jenkins, Bilal Nichols, Adam Butler. I only anticipated this roster to keep 6 players anyway. So now you move on from Neil Farrell. I do think it opens up, though, something for like a Matthew Butler, something for a John Jenkins, something for an Adam Butler on top of all that. And yes, the 7th-round pick, Nesta Jade Silvera. But what I was saying was this kind of reminds me of a situation where, remember a few years ago back in 2019 when the Raiders drafted Arden Key, and the Raiders also, not drafted Arden, that was the year Arden Key was drafted, but the Raiders had Arden Key, a higher respected prospect, if you will, but they also had Max Crosby. I'm not sitting up here saying Nesta Jade Silvera is going to be Max Crosby, but all the reports, everything that you saw was Crosby's outplaying Arden Key. Crosby's outplaying him in every single aspect of the game. What were a lot of the reports this offseason? Nesta Jade Silvera is outplaying Neil Farrell Jr. What did I see during the preseason games? Nesta Jade Silvera is outplaying Neil Farrell Jr. The Raiders gave Neil an opportunity to showcase his talent, and unfortunately wasn't able to do it. So what are the Kansas City Chiefs doing? They're hitting the panic button here a little bit. And now they're saying, We are trading Neil Farrell Jr. to the Kansas City Chiefs. Why? Because they're a little bit worried about Chris Jones. On top of that, we got some other breaking news here. A player that I thought was going to end up making this 53-man roster, Phillip Dorsett, has been released by the Las Vegas Raiders. So the Raiders have been a very, very active team today and have made a lot of news. But Dorsett was going to be, in my opinion, the sixth receiver. But if you would have tuned in during Jeremy and I's watch party back in week 3 against the Cowboys, the fact that he came into the game when he did, I thought was kind of a surprising thing. So the fact that Phillip Dorsett was just released, if I am Christian Wilkerson right now, I'm thinking, holy shit, I might have a legit shot to make this roster. If I'm Keelan Cole right now, I'm thinking, holy shit, I might have a chance to make this freaking roster, because those two players, I did not know if they were going to make it. And we might even see this Raiders team decide to keep only 5 receivers, because they got Devontae, they got Jacoby, they got Hunter Renfrow, they got Trey Tucker, DeAndre Carter. Those players, locked and loaded, are going to end up making this team. But when you see the fact that they cut Phillip Dorsett, a field stretcher, a player that has those past ties with McDaniels and Ziegler, that does speak major, major volumes to me. And I know right now as it stands, the Raiders, for people that are watching the show right now, the depth chart's not updated, just so we're clear on that. Lacey, he's no longer a member of this team. Isaiah Zuber, no longer a member of this team. So right now it's only Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers, Hunter Renfrow, Sims, Cole, Carter, Trey Tucker, and Christian Wilkerson. But anytime that there is a player that I'm a little bit surprised about, and holy shit, here we go. The Raiders, they just cut Keelan Cole. Raiders just cut Keelan Cole. Wow. That's nuts, man. So the Raiders just cut Keelan Cole, Phillip Dorsett. We are trimming this roster. It's getting closer and closer and closer to getting it all the way down to 53. So not only have the Raiders traded away defensive tackle Neil Farrell Jr. to the Kansas City Chiefs for a 6th-round pick, the Raiders have moved on from Keelan Cole. They have moved on from Phillip Dorsett. Christian Wilkerson might make this roster. Now, again, they might decide to keep only 5 receivers because, let's be real, receivers probably their best position group overall, and they might decide to keep an extra linebacker. Maybe it's a Curtis Bolton. Maybe they decide to keep an extra cornerback. Maybe they decide to keep an extra safety like a Roderick Teamer. All those options are absolutely on the table, and I'm just going to say it because of how bad John Gruden and Mike Mayock were. The Saints also just cut Jonathan Abram. All right, y'all, are you surprised that Phillip Dorsett and Keelan Cole did not make the final 53-man roster for the Las Vegas Raiders? Give me a yes, or I want you to type no. I'm surprised that Dorsett didn't make it. I'm not all that surprised that Keelan Cole didn't make it. And I was betting more on Dorsett making this roster because of relationships, which mean a lot to Josh McDaniels. They mean a lot to Dave Ziegler. When you add up all of those things there, that a lot of the times is what transitions into being, okay, who ends up making this roster or not. But this team, man, you never know what's going to happen. There's no doubt about that. And this team is always a very interesting one to cover. And for those of you that are not watching this live, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you turn on those notifications because we got almost 1,400 people watching this live stream right now on YouTube. And Jeremy Chuggs and I are getting ready to go wild. Brandon Jasper just did some crazy-ass shit, and he wants to get nuts. And I'm kind of down to get nuts as well. So for those of you that are not watching this live, we're going to talk about what this means for Nesta Jade Silvera, which is very good news. Adam Butler, John Jenkins, Matthew Butler on top of all that. And guess what? If you're looking for free videos every single day, we got you covered. Hit that subscribe button, turn on those notifications. That way, you never miss a thing. All right, here's the trade graphic again for the Raiders. They are sending a defensive tackle by the name of Neil Farrell Jr. to the Kansas City Chiefs because this is the Chiefs. I'm telling you, hitting that panic button a little bit. Chris Jones might not be back, and the Raiders get a 6th-round pick in 2024. So essentially, you draft a guy in 2022 for a 4th-rounder, and in return, you get a 6th-round pick. That's the deal. That's why we ended up going live. That's why we've been live here for Roster Cut Day. Let me know who won the deal, LV for the Raiders or FKC for the Chiefs.